Good Monday afternoon. I was all over the place today. Initially, initially I wanted to basically I'm already out of it. Initially, I wanted to um do, I guess, cover post hearing, which I'm doing now. And then I wanted to do it earlier, but then I realized my class was ending. Well, actually, we went way over. So it was ending pretty much as soon as that ended. I needed to be on the live. And then I hadn't eaten, and my stomach was in deep pain. So I'm sorry, this was later than intended originally, and then earlier than I said, which was going to be 8 o'clock, but I'm not doing so well today. So I just wanted to get this going and kind of get it out of the way, not because this means a lot and I love being here and doing this, but getting it out of the way so I can rest or whatever I need to do. Um, I'll start with so much to get to today, the hearing being the biggest one. Um, and let me put do not disturb on because it's suddenly all over the place. And yeah, so much. Um, Attachment styles got into the picture, which I for the first time, maybe I'm disappointed in Dave Neal. I'm like actually using the word disappointed in him. So um anyways, I want to start with an you know this is gosh, I'm just all over the place. I want to start with the polls that I created over the weekend at one point, I guess yesterday, one day ago. I initially was curious about was, you know, who was leaning to which side. And 61% of voters, I am a very small channel. I have, a small audience. So I didn't get too much, but 61% was 100% on Justin Baldoni. I wonder now, but nothing really happened to change that now with this hearing today. So I'll wait until, further along, there's more trials or anything. But I was curious. I posted a video also yesterday, and I posted a video that spoke about where I was coming from, why I was supporting him. And I didn't vote on this, but I am on this side of things. I'm on this 8%. And this was more because at first we had 12 votes, or I had 12 votes so far. At first it was zero for betterment of humanity. And I don't know how many people, I can't see, and I can't do the math right now, how many people voted for that, but maybe it's my friends. Because I was kind of talking about this because yeah, and yes, technically you could say kind of anything can go into that. And I just saw the misspelling of underdog, underdo. um but yeah, you can say that's a betterment of humanity. I see that as more of a personal relationship to it. Like, oh, the underdog, has to win. I can also see how it doesn't have to be personal. But yeah, 33% tie legal merit with underdog. Um, yeah, I think the majority would probably go for the legal merit. Whoever has the most compelling, let's say, evidence, um, should win, right? The one that is proven to be right in the trial. Um, but yeah, and the personal experience and our underdog personal experience, I saw especially today because they brought up, and if you were here earlier, they brought up Lively's lawyer Gottlieb. Um, he brought up, I think it's a he, right? He brought up that they're a woman owned business, so they shouldn't, not that they shouldn't be charged or go to trial or something, but let me pull that up. Let me see what that was. Um, okay, sorry, not Gottlieb, Macaulay. regarding Leslie Sloan and so forth. My client's female run company shouldn't be subject to this. And this being discovery, I guess. Um, yeah. And this is really a case about their crisis management team saying they are going to bury people. I mean, sorry, I just kind of got a visceral reaction to that part too. I didn't get it the first time, but wait, they just said basically, she just said, Macaulay said, this is really, not a case about us. We didn't do anything. They did. This is a case about them, their PR. We're PR too, but we didn't do anything, even though it was kind of proven in the evidence that Leslie Sloan totally actually maybe have been the first, right? To go against the truce or whatever, or the hey, we're not going to smear each other or whatever. And so I love that she had the audacity. Sorry, I'm not sharing the right screen because I can only share one screen at a time. Yeah, I love that they had this audacity. This is where I was seeing it. So a lot of us followed inner city press guy. I forget his name, Matthew something. Um, and yeah, yeah, wow. But also saying that my client's female run company shouldn't be subject to this was very offensive to many, many women. And a lot of women that have spoken up have said, also as someone who has been a victim, who has been a survivor, etc. Um, like this offends me. This has nothing to do with us. Stop roping us in. Um, so it's that just like really is interesting to me. It's something when you're defending Blake Lively's side of things, it is a moment of pause. Why so many victims? And no, it's not that many people that are unhealed and excuse me, and are just magically manipulated by this guy that they didn't even have an interaction with, right? That's not a thing. um but yeah, anyways, yeah, sorry, I'm not on my game today. I've said that and I will keep saying that today. It's just like in my mind. Yeah, but anyways, so this was my poll. If you haven't voted, go ahead and vote, please. I'm really curious. These are not the best. I would have loved to have a couple more options. I think like 6 options total was what I was coming up with. So I was trying to kind of cram some other things in this. But yeah, and yeah, so let's move on to the hearing. So I already kind of shared um, whatever you call it, the live kind of thing, the live tweeting of it. And for some reason, I haven't looked at um, X since it became X, honestly. And even before that, I wasn't really on Twitter that much for years. So I wasn't refreshing it properly. And I saw that in actually did, you know, ended and I'm waiting and waiting and I didn't see that I needed to click show reply and they did end it adjourned. Before that, people are confused like so was the gag order, which was really not a gag order but a protection order. I guess that's a little different, but was it, in was it ruled yes on it or no on it? And basically, my understanding and what I seem to hear from other YouTubers understanding that have either like followed lawyers or just their own understanding is that yes and no. My understanding is that going forward, the lawyers are not supposed to speak to the media. They're not supposed to basically litigate this outside of the court in that sense. However, things that come up through like just because they're open to the public under First Amendment, those are still okay. So there is no gag order, there is no protection in sense of like we're just like closing this whole case out of the public. Just don't. speak sparingly to the press and to the public. And a lot of people were also asking about, because Friedman spoke just briefly outside of the courtroom as they came out, and Lively's lawyer team did not speak. And they were kind of, well, didn't the judge just say don't stop speaking? And someone commented, and I don't know if they were a lawyer, but I think it goes with my understanding of it. Oftentimes we see lawyers after a court hearing, after a court date, whatever, kind of just summarizing their thoughts, like, yeah, we think it went great, or oh, we have some work to do, or whatever. And it wasn't really detailing anything that was said. It was just, yeah, we're pleased with what happened, with the judge's ruling or seeing on this case. And um, just reiterating in such a very small nutshell of what this whole thing is about, and how his clients are devastated over these charges. And this was also kind of here reiterated, or well, before it iterated, where Friedman said damage is done before a jury speaks. And my understanding of that is basically by the time we get to the final jury verdict or whatnot, it will kind of be too late almost. There would be so much damage, honestly, on both sides. There would be so much damage by that time that we'll see if the judge will grant like a speed up. From what I read is that he's not currently um not judging, not currently considering that, but instead he's saying that if the lawyers continue to speak to the public or influence the public, like, yes, like not influence, but like do interviews and so forth, if they continue, excuse me, to use the public instead of the courtroom, which is a kind of a gray area, then he's considering to make it, the court date faster. I forget, somewhere around the end here. Yeah. My favorite part though is he said on his client show, Megan Kelly, he said, past client also, he said evidence is being planted by the other team. He said Blake Lively was no victim. She used allegations to try to become the director of the movie. And I love that the answer, like, isn't that the complaint, his complaint? Like, isn't that the point of his filing? I love that. So I overall, so far from what I've read, and we obviously have read so little, is the judge seems quite fair and understanding. And there are some things that, yes, we would have liked to go better as a public that's supporting Justin Side, but I don't think, I think it's fair. I think everything was fair. And yeah, but it would have been really interesting to see from my perspective. I didn't follow Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, so it would have been interesting to see, in my opinion, how the judge responds, because judges should be very neutral, objective, and calm and regulated. And yeah, it would have been interesting, but we won't get to see that. But hopefully we'll get a sooner trial, honestly, because yeah, this is a lot. But like I posted in the other chat these links directly, so you don't have to necessarily go on X or whatever, but I posted them there if you want to go support inner city press and support Matthew, specifically Matthew Lee Russell, maybe is his name. Okay. And then I found it also very interesting that the way that the coverage, if like you can tell certain things about the title that certain publications use. And I think this one for sure like stood out, but what's new with Fox, they're definitely like the emotional boom. That's what they do. Um, there's like no real like objectivity or whatever, or even if they are objective, like it's It's like hit you with emotion, like trigger you. But yeah, anyway, so Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni muzzled by judge in heated, I mean, maybe they were there, in heated sexual harassment battle is the end of that. Um, and a proposed protective order is due March 11th. So that protective order, maybe this is why people are confused, and I am with them pretty much. I believe that protective order on March 11th is Blake Lively's team is going to do another protective order ask, primarily for other third parties, or to consider the fact that third parties that haven't sued each other, they're not part of the litigation, right? Litigation, part of the case, part of the filings. So they don't get roped in by being mentioned or by being something leaked about them or whatnot. So that's going to be very interesting because I wrote in my notes, is this then this whole protective order? Did this initiate maybe with Taylor Swift? Because she is someone who needs for her image to be contained. Not the only one. Beyonce as well. Those two are like two people, two celebrities that I can think of, and they're for sure more and probably more politicians and so forth that many people don't know that much about, anyways. But these two people are the ones that have been very highlighted in the media, at least for how controlled their image is and how much they're controlling their image. And this also came kind of after, well, no, it was actually before. Was it before? It came after the video was released. But also the Justin's lawsuit that included Taylor's name, just at one point escaping, but everything else was blacked out. Um, so it could be a little pressure from that side, but understandable. It also could be like just for safety and career safety and maybe even personal safety of those other people that are supposed to come out in support of Blake Lively. And that's understandable if they don't want to be associated publicly with this because they didn't start this. I feel like that's fair. So we'll see how that shapes up. Um, but I did see it very interesting how different people tempers fly. It didn't sound like it they did, right? When you're reading that's why, even if the lawyers were heated, we don't even know, but that's why I think it's good to take away from that conversation, take that from away from the conversation of emotion, like just present what they're saying. There's no emotion. I feel like you could tell when the judge had humor. um s- like, isn't that his case? And things like that. But yeah, just I don't know that it was that heated. It wasn't even that long, so we'll see. But anyways, and so this kind of wraps up, I think, um, this first hearing. Let's see. Thanks also to Popcorn Planet Andy. I jumped off of my previous live. Wow, I did 3 lives today. I jumped off and then saw his live covering this. I didn't really anticipate for this to happen. So thanks to him for, like, he provided some coverage, and I was honestly not going to do mine. I was just going to do my reaction. But then his got just overly stimulating for me today, and I literally was in physical discomfort just so much, and he was struggling with his Instagram, and I was like, I compassion, empathy, cool, but I just couldn't take it today out of all days. So I just started my own just to calmly read it myself. But thanks to Andy at Popcorn Planet and Kim over there, and then obviously Inner City Press that I found out through them. So it's a two-way thank you to both of them. Um and then let's see. Yeah, there was, so I want did want to covered this article, which maybe makes a little bit more sense. Um, what that was. But yeah, so my question was, can journalists report live or after if court is not public? So far, my understanding is yes. There was no yet protective order, gag order, anything that prevents the public from speaking about it. And all this stuff, or from all of what we've already had public being taken down, including the website at this point. And also the website, I think, I don't think the website was needed, but I think shouldn't expect anything to be added to that website going forward. Um, Unless maybe other documents that are publicly published. Um, but yeah, I think it's an iffy if that was a smart move or not. Um, but yeah, they did a good thing not including any other videos or any other notes or anything other than the case that was filed and the amendments that were filed. Okay, so and they didn't even include the amendments around the protective order and all those letters and everything. So I think they kept it pretty contained to just what was pertinent to them. So yes, the depositions will happen unless the trial doesn't happen. But they will happen. But for now, they're not going to happen. It's a pause until they all agree to all the parties that will be involved. So they don't have to do the deposition more than once. That's what the judge said. So that's another one that was, I guess, confusing. Um, and then, yeah. So let me go to this article over here. I never thought I would look at daily as much as I'm looking at. And I just can't stand all the ads and everything. So this is one of the first articles that came out right after the hearing, and I think it was. Oh yeah, so the revised complaint. So Gottlieb said that they have been planning on revising Blake Lively's complaint and releasing that one, or like filing that one. So now we have this date by Valentine's Day, because they did say, I think, 2 weeks in the hearing. And then some other pictures. I wish they would stop. I don't like the traditional media approach of, this person that played in this, the Gossip Girl star or whatever. And all these past photos. Just keep it simple, plain. And also, once we've seen Blake Lively, once we've seen Justin once, we know who they are, who we're looking for. We don't need all of that in between. But yeah, so this is what Gottlieb said. Like, we're not supposed to launch attacks on one another's party's character, which he claims is what Friedman was actually doing. And Friedman's like, no, I was just, you know, saying what our claims are. But he did say it before the claims came out, so that was something that I didn't hear that talked about. But yeah, if there's no guardrails, we have to go out on shows, arguing on shows what a particular document or video means. Um, and then Friedman said that it has not been a one-way street, and this is the one that I wanted to say. So Judge Lyman, after listening to both of them, said that Friedman did go a little bit further than Lively's lawyers did. It's going to be interesting to see the amended complaint from Blake Lively's side, if they will include more evidence and their own text messages and other evidence, or what it'll include, because those are under the First Amendment. I just learned today, I think, or yesterday, they are public. Um, so it's going to be interesting if they're going to actually have some receipts of their own and fight back a little bit. But so so far that's going to keep happening as far as like public records. Excuse me. So this is the rule was barring the lawyers from making extrajudicial statements that could influence the jury. So um, if they want to file complaints, if they want to file amendments, anything in those legal document type things, then they can. Is again my non-lawyer understanding. Um, and then Oh, and this was very interesting because Judge Lyman granted this, like, okay, let me say yes on this rule. What is it? Rule 3.6. Let's adopt it. But then he was hesitant to adopt it. But then Friedman also agreed on this. And so after both sides agreed to it, he changed his mind and said, okay, cool. This is a good thing. My expectation is the parties will comply with their ethical obligations. I don't expect this case to devolve into satellite litigation over the comments of a lawyer. And someone understood this as like meaning satellite litigation, the lawyers going into the different interviews and so forth. My understanding of it, and I don't know who's right. Defer to your lawyers on YouTube. I'm gonna try to find different lawyer opinions on YouTube talking about this. I don't think many are. Um, and I have also like a caveat or like a warning. Just because they're a lawyer, because they're a psychologist, doesn't mean that they're really honest or fair, or so be careful also into that. But my understanding personally is that it shouldn't become about lawyers. This case shouldn't be about lawyers being tried, you know like the parties themselves are being tried, and then their lawyers are being tried. Like, that's a little too much. Both have said a lot in the pleadings that give the public plenty to feast upon, which just kind of sounded like the judge does not mind. Like, cool, this is a thing. And my understanding of the First Amendment and what we've kind of all talked about recently around this is the public does deserve to know. Especially, this is not a case that's with like high personal safety stakes. It's just celebrity career, things like that. And so yeah, I did find a little interesting the way that he phrased it, plenty to feast upon. But now, let's just keep it to the courts. Um, and then, yeah. Oh, not to sound like a 4-year-old fighting a 4-year-old but they started it. But once someone says something, it becomes fact. There's no way to fight against it. You start to lose things without the ability to have the court's adjudication. This was not started by us. And then Judge Lyman also warned that if both sides didn't behave themselves, he could move the date of the trial forward from March next year. Wait, forward meaning beyond March or faster? My understanding was faster than next year because it was something like to yeah, I don't know what that means then. Then he said that he's not going to do that. I'm convinced the parties need the time for discovery. Okay, so I guess moving it faster than next year. And we have one part of why possibly he or whoever decided on this trial date was decided to be that far out, giving them plenty of time for discovery and just building a good case. Yeah, but if it turns out that this ends up being litigated in the press in a way that would prejudice the opportunity of a fair trial, which, I feel like it's just gonna be hard when it comes to, like, celebrities. One of the tools the court has is to accelerate the date of the trial. That's something that is out there. I don't want to do that. Cool. So, this is, um, kind of the summary of today. Not again, it wasn't a huge thing. There were basically these 2 subject matters, these two things that were on, not on trial, but up for discussion. Um, so yeah, I did want to say that the First Amendment, I'm gonna share that screen a little bit. Um, this is the First Amendment. It's not a big one. Amendments and everything, they're quite small. But Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abiding the freedom of or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably, nice words, to assemble and to petition the government for a redress or of grievances. Reading this now, it does feel sometimes like this is not adhered to, that there is a lot of intimidation and force against this, which people do speak up about. But basically, this was kind of quoted as a reason for the jury documents, not the jury documents, sorry, the trial documents, the filings, court filings being public, even though they're not as easily accessible, but they exist reasonably accessible to the public. And why, gag orders are pretty hard to come by. They're not granted easily, as people have said, etc., etc. And yeah, I said this in before I move on to something very different. I said this to another live. Is this the year, like where the downfall of the snakes? And I didn't say it this way, and then I caught myself like, this is the year we enter the year of the snake. So is this the year, the downfall of the snakes, the manipulators, the truth benders, the people who are weaseling themselves through media, whether they're business, politics, celebrity, whatever they are, um, the ones that lure public with fear. Is this the year that's going to be their downfall? That's going to be interesting. I say this because I see it independently, completely independently, with this trial. What's happening in politics is a mess. Whichever side you're on, I don't even know if there is a side right now. We're just like in confusion with what's going on. Um, but there's definitely like unearthing happening. And I mentioned the Housewives, which, yes, it's a reality show and it's ridiculous to a lot of people, but it's interesting. I'm glad that I watch it because I see how it's happening on each housewife show. And they filmed it last year, but some of the things are filmed this year, like the reunions. And it's interesting what's happening with Bryn and what's happening, which is crazy that I still don't see that they will like stand firm on that. But what's happening with Karen Huger from Potomac, and what's happening, whether you're looking at Kyle Richards on Beverly Hills, or I mean, there's a few people in there that, my personal one is like Sutton. Sutton is, she needs to like be in reality, or like not in reality, but like the way she cut off Dorit is just so insensitive. Anyways, I don't want to get, this is not a live about housewives and reality TV. I'm just saying, like, it's interesting that I'm seeing this so much in so many different areas that aren't even technically related, and they're completely independent of each other. But it seems like overall, as a humanity, things are, the old way of doing things is kind of crumbling. The fear leading, which is not really leading, but leading by fear instead of respect, instead of love, instead of betterment of structure and society and humans. is like falling down. So it's definitely interesting. And it's been happening, like it's been, slowly crawling up. A lot of people felt that way with Taylor Swift, and it's been crawling up. So yeah, anyways. And also interesting that Friedman spoke just neutrally. They had, the press was outside of the court. They had microphones, and Friedman spoke into that, to everyone, addressing everyone at once and simple. And yet, Lively's lawyers, Scott Lieb and Hudson, went to TMZ, and they told TMZ, whatever, their outcome or their impression of the outcome was. And I was like, interesting, something to keep in mind. Something to keep in mind. Because they're the ones that don't want it to be a media PR battle, except they didn't do that as honestly and as neutrally as Friedman did. And maybe because they needed some time to reconvene, I don't know. But they basically sold their story, whether it's for money or not money, probably not for money, who knows. But they, you know, technically and untechnically, they gave their story away to one particular um, published platform. So yeah. All right. Attachment styles. So this is interesting. Before, just quick mention, I'll drop a link below to this one guy's YouTube channel. If you want to learn more, I don't really know. I'm not promoting him. I'm not promoting him. I don't really know enough about him, but I was introduced to this guy, I think, during the elections by my boyfriend, and he kind of is popping up now. I don't watch the news. I don't really want to be involved in that because it's just a mess, and it just causes my body, my nervous system can be dysregulated anyways, and it just completely dysregulates my nervous system, kind of like video games do. Interesting, like sometimes they can be fun and nice and whatever, but sometimes I can feel, and I didn't know this was what was happening when I was younger, but when I was playing video games like Halo, I would feel just, I just wouldn't feel good. I would feel like anxiety, I guess you could say, dysregulated nervous system. So, anyways, but I don't know if he's on one side or the other. If he seemed like on one side, so take it with a grain of salt. Um, but I just saw right before jumping on here this whole thing, like, why do we keep having these like airplane issues? Things are crashing into each other or having serious accidents, and all within like 2 weeks, 3 weeks of this new administration. Again, I don't know enough to say anything, so check him out. I don't know if what he says is, again, biased or not biased, but it opens up a conversation because I think we all feel like, what is happening? Um, and basically, what he says is that there's a study that 90% of air traffic control centers or whatever are understaffed, and yet now the government or I don't know exactly who is asking for more resignations, um, and blaming the DEI. We saw the president do that, blaming the DEI policies and so forth. And so I don't know. It doesn't sound great on that front. And when you're already understaffed, to ask for more understaffing. Anyways, all right. So attachment style. This one is kind of a personal one, not really. Kind of, maybe. I spoke about attachment styles in my video regarding Matt James and Rachel Kirkconnell. I don't see, and I've studied. If you can ask the people that know me how annoying have I've been through the past 5 years around attachment styles. I am a little rusty, so I can't really dive in right now and make a huge case for anything. But my intuition based on all the information that I've studied so deeply for like 3 consecutive years, for like the 4th one a little bit less, and then now the 5th one has kind of just started, is that I don't see attachment styles play a role in Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni in this case and in this feud, let's call it, really, because it was before the filings. I think it's something what we're seeing, and watch also Dr. Amin Kaur's videos. It is increasingly, if the evidence backs up what it's supposed to back up, if the evidence is really like, if there's nothing like crazily different outside of this evidence, it's looking increasingly plausible that there is some narcissistic tendencies or whatever involved in that. So look at watch my other video on the narcissism part. Um, Again, you can't diagnose. There's so many things that could be happening, but oftentimes people are confusing narcissistic traits with attachment style. I know the path that I went through was, there were so few things that were being talked in 2020, and attachment style wasn't really one of them. And so a lot of people were calling it, especially around men, narcissism. Like, they're narcissists, and the like, if you remember in 2020, I feel like pretty much the world or US decided that if you're a man, you're a narcissist, period. Which is crazy because that's not true. Not even the least true. But that's somehow what it was, the conversation, what it was. And then I discovered attachment style because I was trying to figure out my side of things. And I was like, why is my partner and I, why are we having the issues that we're having? What is going on here? Why am I perceiving things that a certain way and vice versa? When someone's perceiving something that you're giving, speaking or your actions or whatever, and they're perceiving it so in a way that you couldn't even imagine, you're like, what is going on here? So narcissism being the main topic back then, I looked into it and I was like, no, none of this applies at all. So what could it be? And I came across Thais Gibson's video on, I guess, I think she was comparing narcissism with dismissive avoidant, which ironically, it's quite a very weak correlation. Um, Very weak correlation. But this also highlighted to me how fragile all of this information that we're seeing online is. Because just because someone is saying something, even if they have the credits, which I'm about to talk about this one guy, that I feel like it's a little unethical what he's saying, but maybe it's within the ethical bounds or the legal bounds of it. Um, but yeah, anyways, but um, I I lost my train of thought. Oh my gosh, I was getting a little better there for a second. Um, I don't know what I was saying. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So I discovered Thais Gibson back in 2020, and I was blown away by the potential misinformation, the everyday misinformation around topics, especially around topics that make us label people um and give us excuses as how to react or treat others. Because when you label someone as bad, because when you're labeling someone as a narcissist, which I feel like everyone's being labeled that way. Maybe not as much as 2020 because it was new for us, and I don't know, world ran with that, but um eh, especially because, yeah, that isn't it, attachment style is very different, and it's not rooted in anything that's very destructive. it can feel very painful, but it's not, yeah, quite as destructive unless it's combined with something else. Um, but yeah, when you're labeling someone, you kind of give yourself authority to discard them, to belittle them, to trash them, maybe not publicly, but even to your own self, to your own mind, or to your friends or your family or whoever. It gives you an excuse, or like, yeah, to not treat them as well and with as much compassion, etc. And that's why I am very much an advocate of attachment style understanding, um because that's what most people are dealing with when they're dealing with very hard relationship issues, is just two people that are speaking different languages, and they need to have the willingness to learn each other's language, kind of literally sometimes, um and also, like, place that problem outside of themselves and look at and work on themselves individually and together, and not just label someone like, "Oh, this is you. You are the problem of this," which other things are. And attachment style kind of gives a lot more freedom and a lot more reality to our misunderstandings or our issues that can be extremely painful. Excuse me. When I saw Dave Neal's video, he had an attachment style specialist, he said. For one, it did kind of feel, "Oh, this doesn't feel great. Like, this is kind of my turf." I've spent so much time and so much effort on learning about attachment styles. I became a coach in attachment style theory. I started going back for for a license in marriage and family therapies to get even um more knowledge, like scientific knowledge, not just, attachment style knowledge, but like the whole psyche of humanity, of humans, and know and learn about other theories and about other things that play and shape us and all that stuff. So I take this seriously, not just because I don't know that much. I know a lot, but I don't know that much. And I also take it seriously because it comes from a place where I see so much misinformation and I see so much damaging TikTokers, YouTubers, influencers, whatever, talking as if they know what they're saying in a way that affects their audience in potentially harmful ways. I don't know if you've heard, I've not really done much deep dive into this guy, but if you've heard of Jordan Peterson, this guy that Dave Neal had on, Adam Smith, literally said that he hired Jordan Peterson's team, like marketing team or someone, or content team, to work for him or his company, so forth. He is a licensed marriage and family therapist. Um, and he discovered that attachment styles was the content that his audience gravitated towards. I want to say again, be very careful. The way that he presents things, in my opinion, it is not necessarily ethical. It can be potentially, sometime I try to be open-minded that how someone enters the conversation, enters into a new piece of knowledge, might excuse might be a good excuse. Like if it gets them through that door that they wouldn't otherwise go through because they see it whatever other way. Maybe that's good, maybe the end result is for the better, or like, not for, there's that one phrase of, the end justified the means, right? So I'm keeping an open mind in that. And also I couldn't really get through much of his content, because just off the bat, when you look, first of all, his channel says number one attachment style channel. That is wrong. He doesn't have nearly the amount of subscribers, views, etc., as Thais Gibson. She's been at it for, I believe, much longer. I didn't look at his um like video. Oh, oldest, let's see, 3 years ago. Okay, so even in channel life, his channel is younger by 2 years at least or more. She's been doing it for 7 years. So there you go. 6 years ago, she was posting, and she posted such deep dives into attachment styles. And she always, ethically so, warns and, says, um, this is not a video. These are not things for you to use against your partner, for you to use to, try to control the outcome or to change your partner or whatever. And he does not say that. His first video on his homepage literally starts with, to the men out there. And it says the respect means different things to men and women, which is false. Um, but yeah, he talks very much about, this is why I'm saying, like, maybe to men, he is someone that's a lot more um attractive to listen to, not like physically. I'm saying, like, maybe he speaks in ways that the men that are closed off from traditional therapy, um from people like Thais Gibson, because she's a woman, or because she is goes a lot more in depth and into the root causes, and just like into the fair kind of view of things, rather than making it about men and women. So maybe again, this might be the entryway for certain men, because he speaks to men, certain men, to enter this and get curious about it. And maybe this is a jumping off point, and they'll find Thais Gibson, or they'll find other therapists like Dr. Kirk Honda, who also would disagree with this approach, because he often says, like, this is not a men versus woman. Men and women are not that different as 99% of, he doesn't say 99%, but most of the things that are spoken to that way. And Dr. Kirk Honda, is not only a therapist, but also teaches other people to be therapists at, he's in Seattle, Antioch College or something in Seattle. I forget. Which you might say, well, it's not a big college, but if you listen to him, that's the thing. When you listen to people, listen to how they speak to you. Learn to differentiate between someone who's speaking from a neutral, not so biased, or not making you biased, and not speaking necessarily to your fears and your traumas and your biases and so forth. And listen to someone who's going to be very matter of fact with you, and not so biased and so forth. And I love Dr. Kanda. He calls things out really fairly. But yeah, and there was another video that this Adam Lean Smith, Attachment Adam, as he's called, I guess. The first video that I tried watching was get him to chase you. And I was like, oh my gosh. There was nowhere that I saw in the video a disclaimer of, don't do this. Don't do this to make someone chase you, because that is basically discarding yourself. It's crossing your own boundaries. It's like going against yourself, and you can't control other people. And also, let's not manipulate other people. You also can't really do that, even if you do the things that, people say, like, here's the checklist or whatever. I guess it depends on who you are. Like, if someone is that is their operating system to manipulate, like, that is ingrained in them from such an early age, maybe they can withstand that for a longer period of time. But you can't, you don't, and the other person also, they might not see through it necessarily, but they feel like something's off. But people also kind of sometimes feel like something's off even when there isn't. So it's a whole conversation. But that's also why, don't say that. Don't even make statements like that on your thumbnail, albeit But don't say that. It just promotes less trust with one another, which actually, ironically, he talks about that, how men need to like feel like they can trust to open up, to be safe. But you're literally, your work, as far as I can see, is doing the opposite. And so, yeah, I don't know. At least give the disclaimer that Thais always gives, like, this should not be used against anyone. It should not be used. It should only be an introspective point of view of understanding the other person and understanding yourself. And, being a jumping off point to um, compassionate and open, vulnerable, honest conversation or communication. Or, if you are really just needing that piece of information about the other person that you maybe, because of your own biases, don't see the other person is coming from this space, and then you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't think they were scared, I didn't think they were hurt by me because they reacted this way. Like, look, like they're yelling at me, or they're like shutting down from me, they went away, they whatever, so they must not care or whatever. And now, seeing this video, I understand what is probably happening behind the scenes, and how to approach them in a way that it keeps us both in value. No one is less valuable than the other. So I really, really, really do not like this guy's channel, and also being featured on Dave Neal. And the video is surprising. Like, he only has like only 300, 600 people liking his that video, and usually he has more. So I was like, maybe other people see through this too. The reason that I felt kind of like a little betrayed, honestly, by Dave, because I trust him so much, and he talks so differently and so much more fairly and objectively to his audience. But he had this guy instead of Tice Gibson, and made me like pause for a second. Why? I have absolutely zero even theory as to why, but I'm just confused why he featured him instead of Thais, who has done this for so long, and is a lot more aligned with his approach, with Dave Neal's approach and philosophy on life. So, yeah, than this guy. But yeah, the one thing that he says, that this Adam guy says, is, I think towards the end, is you know, do this or think of what to do, so that this is a quote, so that he craves your presence, that the man, that is a dismissive avoidant, craves your presence. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, that is not solving attachment discord, or disconnection. That is just wrong advice. I actually was thinking about this a few days ago, like this whole craving or whatever. um it's I don't know, be careful with that too. I think that applies a lot more to attraction rather than actual love or actual connection. um but yeah, it's oof, gosh, I don't know. Um, Anytime that, like, you see someone say men do this or men need this, and also telling you what you should do, or women do this and women need this, and telling you, how to get your, you know, woman partner, your girlfriend, whatever, back, or how to get your male partner, men, back, or whatever. That should be an instant, like, red flag. Like, if you're really curious, go in and see how they speak about it. But if they really get into it exactly in that same tone, that should be a huge red flag when it comes to relationship, um, coaching, whether it's, listening to someone on YouTube speak, or um, anything, or even in person therapy or whatever. Not all therapists are great at what they do, and not all therapists are neutral. Not all. I mean, we saw that one TikTok therapist. She was just in another world. Like, so many people were just shocked that she was saying the things that she was saying. She was even making things up, which I think is a legal matter, but I'm gonna stay out of that one. But like, but that doesn't mean that they're not good therapists. That doesn't mean that you should discard attachment styles, or even what this guy says. There might be things that he says that, he says it a little differently than Thais or than someone else that you've heard talking about attachment styles that click for you, you know? But be careful. What you ingest becomes you. It is in you. And that's actually literally attachment style is what we've become as a result of our external world, which also he says at one point, and then everything else basically says everything the opposite. But he says naturally avoidant, and I'm like, there's no nature in attachment style, and attachment styles are completely nurture. Um so yeah, but I again, if it gets people in the door to explore and learn more, um maybe it's a good thing. I don't know, but it just made me extremely uncomfortable, and I I wanted to write on his that last video, this is unethical, because in my opinion, it has quite a few ethics and moral flags that go off when I watch his stuff. But I'm gonna see, like, I'm just gonna let him do his thing, and I think try the best approach of just amplifying the voices that I feel are more neutral and not as damaging, you know? So I don't know. But yeah, as I said, as far as like the Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni side, maybe I'll spend a little time. Attachment style is gosh, it's so different than from what I've read in these, 2 claims and so forth, and even in interviews. I don't know, attachment style speaks out to me when I watch either of them. They have attachment styles. Every single person on this planet has an attachment style. Or like a kind of a combination at times, because you can have one attachment style tendency when you're in a romantic relationship, and that's like truly your attachment style, versus when you're at work, or when you're with your family or friends, or strangers in interviews. So I think attachment style is one of the harder ones to pinpoint. With Matt and Rachel, it screamed because of the words that she used were like quite directly from my notes and my binder on my little library encyclopedia on attachment styles. And so I was like, ooh, wow, it popped. I don't think, again, the more we've learned, I'm not diagnosing her, but I'm just completely personally leaning like there is something else and something more when it comes to her. The way that she crosses boundaries. The thing with like, so dismissive avoidance don't cross boundaries. Um, they're the ones that are more detached though. And she is kind of both. She doesn't take no for an answer, but it doesn't seem like it comes from fear. And because anxious attached people would have a harder time with boundaries, accepting boundaries, because they're just so desperate. And people can say this because this has been in the conversation around Blake. Like, they're so desperate to be accepted, they're so desperate to not be left, they're so desperate to be loved. And so that's where things can get blurry of like, what is narcissism or narcissistic traits or tendencies versus attachment styles. You take just that one fact of, oh well, this person crosses my boundaries and doesn't say no. Well, it's different. Are they using that against you, or are they doing that just because they are literally feeling like their nervous system is in war. Like they're literally at times in physical pain from it. You and which might sound, if you're not and you've not experienced that, like it might sound dramatic and too much, but that can actually happen versus like someone who is calculated around that. An anxious attachment would not drop the person, because this was so interesting that as soon as Blake got most of the control and she could do whatever she wanted and she had the higher hand and the power, she stopped being nice to Justin and everyone else around him. And she stopped even communicating directly. And I mean, there are things that are so different. So I would not say that the video Dave Neal had wasn't saying this either, but I think in one of today's videos that he made, he kind of alluded like, oh, watch that video as it relates to this. But I think in the video itself, there was no talk about. It was hard for me to watch even that video. So I just kind of scroll through it. So maybe it was at one point, but I don't think this is a conversation about attachment styles. Excuse me, when it comes to Blake and Justin, and yeah, it's just really hard to watch what's happening with that. Um, and that's kind of all I had. I know, like I said, I was all over the place with my schedule today, more than usual. And by usual, I mean what I've been doing these lives for a week, maybe a little bit more than a week. So yeah. Hi, Maria. We weren't at this point. We're not talking about any person. I was talking about actually, and I'll pull up the channel. I was talking about Dave Neal's attachment style video, or like collaborated video with him, Adam Lane Smith. And I was talking about how be very careful when it comes to him. As far as attachment styles, he is already saying number one attachment style on YouTube. That is false. That is actually wrong and like not a fact. And then it's just the content that I try to watch just to like get a better idea. Um, it raised some ethical flags for me. Um, but yeah, we also talked, and also before I kind of recap what we talked about today. This is Thais Gibson, Personal Development School, personaldevelopmentschool.com. Um, and what she doesn't have like coaching like he does, as far as I know, maybe she added it. We all kind of, the coaches that she coached, we kind of dispersed videos all the way from 6 years ago. And I would highly encourage her videos. She has really, it made me see myself in a very different light and learn to love myself more, but also um understand myself more. So loving myself through understanding myself more, give myself grace, and also understand what I need to work on more and understand others and give others grace. Though still very much a work in progress with that. I get very triggered all the time still. Um, but yeah, and then we covered the hearing. I basically said that from my understanding and the understanding that I see other people also have, there is no technically protective or gag order, but they are ruling on it, protective order that Blake Lively's team will file soon. They'll be ruling on it on March 11th. But for now, as far as what they filed, what they claimed, whatever they asked for so far, the judge said, going forward, no more litigation in the press. Um, but there is no like, you know, what has already happened is not like you have to take it down, and also um it's not closed, like the filings and so forth will not be closed, and also the depositions will go forward, but just for now the judge wants to wait that all the parties involved that will be involved are, said to be involved, and all of the depositions can start at the same time. And yeah, um you can check out the other stuff. There's not much. So yeah. But that's kind of it for today. Again, I'm sorry for today. I was all over the place. I think I had a Monday like many people have a Monday. Usually, I love Mondays. Usually, Mondays are my favorite and my best days. But I was struggling today, so um, that's also why I'm doing this earlier, so I can just kind of wrap up my day a little earlier than I anticipated. Um, but yeah, once again, thank you for everyone that's joining. Thank you for your support. And if you're interested in attachment styles, I don't want to be an Adam. I don't want to speak, I will leave most of that to Thais Gibson because I truly believe her content is superior to what most people have around attachment styles. She did so much work on this in her life, and she even has like um developed her own approach. And well, a lot of people do that, I don't know, but she did a lot of work in her life as a someone who has done psychology, has counseled, has had clients, has had a practice, has really studied this, has a lot of knowledge in this. And um the way that she combined things is just, I think it just is all so working together and makes sense and is very fair and as right, and objective as possible. Also, Dr. Kirk Honda, I would recommend him. But if you want to, I don't know, for me to make any videos on anything attachment style related, like I really enjoyed making the video on Matt James and Rachel Kirkconnell from this point, and it is a passion of mine. I've been studying this for with 3.5 years strongly, and then the last year not as strongly. And any other things as we're kind of winding down with I don't know, actually, we have no idea what's coming up with Lively and Baldoni stuff, but as we're like winding down with that, and it's not going to be as like bomb, let me know what you would like to hear from me outside of this world, of this like lively Baldoni world. I think Justin's a lawyer should let us take over spreading the word on social media. He has bigger issues. Yeah, yeah, of course, that's also something. Yeah, and I think that's what happened. We still have yet so much to digest. I think we all tried to speed through this timeline attachment, but there's so much, and there's so much I haven't even covered. And like the statement that Ryan Reynolds wrote apparently for Justin using his own words against him, like literally his own words against him. I don't have this pulled up right now, but um man, like the audacity, the nastiness that goes on. And I wonder, part of me wonders if they are blaming Justin because they really think he's like them. They really, when some people like are in their own way of doing things, they really believe the other people do the same things, as they do. And so I wonder, part of me wonders that too. Like, do they really think, that's how his mind operates? Because that's how theirs operate. But yeah. So yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. So far, the court date in 2026 stands. There's no accelerated court date, and there won't be. So far, the judge said that there won't be unless the judges basically can't behave themselves. I think that's a almost a quote. And so it is likely that we will have this whole year. So um, plenty of time to dissect, and then other people to find other things. But also at this stage, there's I think we found most of the stuff that is out there. Anything that's behind the scenes on this movie, they have ownership of it. So unless they leak it, or someone courageous enough on the crew leaks it, you know, then we won't have access to it. So we might slow down quite a bit with this. Um, but yeah, but I've enjoyed this so much. So again, let me know if there's anything else like you'd like me to take a stab at or cover. Um, I've really enjoyed like diving into this deeply and learning so much about law. I didn't learn all that much, but learned so much. This is my favorite place to get subjects to learn about and have opinions about. I mean, don't we all love to have opinions? So I'll continue to like whatever comes up. I'll continue to have lives on or videos or whatever. But so far this hearing was okay, not too much to it. And yeah, I agree that now it's us that should keep kind of talking about it. And yeah, thank you. I'm gonna go. Have a wonderful night. It's an early day on this side of things with us over here with me. But yeah, happy Monday. I hope you had a better Monday than me. Or if not, that's okay too. It's one day out of many. Um, but yeah, have a wonderful night and I'll still come on probably every day, but until maybe it doesn't work. I don't know. So I'll see you tomorrow evening. Have a good night. Bye. Peace, loving, and passion, y'all. Bye.